Hello everyone. I will talk about a poem that touches all of us from the heart. I will talk about a stunning poem written by Edgar Allan Poe. I will present the beautiful Annabel Lee. So, if we are talking about Annabel Lee, we have to look at its background. We have to talk about its creator as well. A great writer, Edgar Allan Poe. He was an American poet and critic, and he is considered the father of Gothic fiction today. Therefore, I will talk about what Gothism is briefly, Poe's life and family, some of his works, his wife, his dad, and for the final step, analysis of Annabel Lee. So, what is Gothic literature? A subgenre of Romantic literature, this kind emerged during the Romantic era in Britain. In most general terms, we can depict it as a writing style that conveys dark and gloomy scenery, includes melodramatic narrative devices, and an atmosphere of exotism, mystery, and fear. So, a story called The Castle of Otranto by Horace Walpole is considered the first Gothic work in literature. These kinds include an event needs to be solved. Gothic works gives the reader a sense of fear and curiosity. That's the way it draws their readers into the works. So many other successful authors have worked in this style. Let's look at key elements of Gothic literature. One of its essential elements is mystery and fear. Gothic works create a sense of mystery and fear in the readers with graveyards, scary castle, with frightened monsters just like in Frankenstein. And of course, a horror atmosphere is created with the settings like old rundown structures, bleak environments such as dark forests, and the weather is always stormy or rainy, and the areas are far away from civilization in these stories. And there exist supernatural beings and paranormal activities cannot be explained normally, just like in The Monk or in the Dracula. And these writers use dreams or nightmares to demonstrate the emotion of their characters intensely. And there is a villain, of course, and there is an anti-hero, which is a nice example of it is Dorian Gray, created by Oscar Wilde. And of course, there are touches of romance, but these love stories are not with happy endings. These romances are usually full of grief and tragedy. And Edgar Allan Poe brought many outstanding works to this style, that's why he became the father of Gothic. So, who was he in fact? Poe was born in 1809 in Boston. He never really knew his parents because his father left his family and his mother died when he was only 3. And a family adopted the Poe, a successful tobacco merchant and his wife. Poe got along well with his foster mother Frances, but he had trouble with his foster father John Allan. Because Poe's literary talents were discouraged by him, Allan wanted Poe to follow the family business. And money had always been an issue between them. Poe went to University of Virginia, but he didn't receive enough funds from Allan, and he ended up in debt. In 1827, around the time he published his first book Tamerlane and other poems, Poe joined the USA Army. 2 years later, he learned that Frances was dying, but by the time he came back to home, she had already passed away. While in Virginia, Poe and Allan made a peace for a while. Poe got the appointment to the United States Military Academy at West Point, but after a year, he was kicked out because of his poor handling of duties. During his time at West Point, Allan remarried again, and eventually their bond was broken forever. After leaving West Point, Poe published his other books and focused on writing full-time. He continued to struggle with poverty, but he found a solution when he participated in the Baltimore Saturday Visitor, a kind of magazine in those times. But his participation at the magazine lasted short, unfortunately, due to aggressive reviewing style and his combative personality in relationship with the publication and some problems with alcoholism, according to some reports. Later in 18 1839, Poe published the Tales of Grotesque and Arabesque. And in 1841, he published Murders in the Rue Morgue, and he created another genre. His imaginative storytelling gave birth to today's detective stories. He became the father of detective stories as well. And with the Gold Bug, he won a prize. And afterwards, his famous poem, The Raven, came out in 1845 and gave him a national fame at once. The Raven is a poem written in Gothic style. It focuses on death and supernatural issues, and its main theme is the death of a beautiful woman and misery over the lost beloved one. So the Raven is the main image of the poem and symbolizes the devil. So it is said that Poe's favorite theme is the death of a beautiful woman. Here are his words. The death of a beautiful woman is unquestionably the most poetical topic in the world, and equally is it beyond doubt that the lips best suited for such topic are those of a brilliant lover. Well, maybe because that's something Poe really experienced in his real life. And another remarkable work of Poe is The Cask of Amontillado. This is a very famous short story, revolves around a revenge story between two friends. Poe conveys the story from the murderer's perspective here. And his wife, his love. Poe fell in love with his cousin Virginia, and she became his inspiration. The couple married in 1836 when Virginia was only 13 years old, and at the age of 24, Virginia died of tuberculosis. And Poe was destroyed by the grief after her death. Although he continued to work, he suffered from poor health situations and struggled financially again. And Poe died in 1849. His final days still remains in mystery. After 4 days he was taken to hospital. He passed away. And here's Annabel Lee. Annabel Lee is the last poem by Edgar Allan Poe. It was published after 2 days of his death. So he was dealing with this poem in his last days. And in the same way as his other poems such as The Raven, Annabel Lee's theme is the death of a beautiful woman, the loss of the beloved one. The poem focuses on the narrator and Annabel Lee's enormous deep and intense love. And most probably this poem represents Poe's wife Virginia. It was a many year ago, in a kingdom by the sea, that a maiden there lived, whom you may know by the name of Annabel Lee. And this maiden she lived with no other thought than to love and be loved by me. The poem starts like a fairy tale, light like Once Upon a Time. It gives the reader a cheerful and romantic feeling. And we picture a kingdom near the distant scenes, and the narrator says a maiden, so we picture a young, beautiful woman. And in the last 2 lines of here, we see how the narrator exaggerates his love, his woman. He says, Annabel Lee has no other desire or thought except for love. All she wants to do, to love and be loved by the narrator. And it is indicated that they are both children, and the narrators say, but we loved with a love that was more than love. So even they are children, it's implied that they loved at the deepest level. And he says, with a love that the winged seraphs of heaven coveted her and me. Their love was so great that even angels are envious of them. Which is weird. Although angels are generally depicted good beings, the narrator indicates a kind of bad side, which is ironic. And this was the reason that long ago, in this kingdom by the sea, a wind blew out a cloud, chilling my beautiful Annabel Lee. So We understand that Annabel Lee has been killed. However, with this line, there is no accurate clue that if she has a cold or her body is cold because of her death. So that her highborn kinsman came and bore her away from me. So as a reader, I might think two options here. Is he a relative that came to take her body for the last farewell, or a relative that came to separate her from the narrator? To shut her up in a sepulchre in this kingdom by the sea. The image of the sepulchre and this kingdom by the sea are the Gothic elements in this poem. And the sepulchre can have two different meanings here, a grave or a castle. So the narrator thinks that he will never be able to see his beloved. And one more time, he states that the angels and Venus led her death. Yes, that was the reason, as all men know, in this kingdom by the sea, that the wind came out of a cloud by night, chilling and killing my Annabel Lee. So with the word of killing, Annabel Lee's death is explicitly stated in this line. And it goes like in a fairy tale tone, but the context of this poem says the opposite. We feel the grief that the narrator has for the Annabel Lee. And then the narrator makes a comparison to any other love stories. We affirm that although they are child, their love is not childish. We feel the strength and greatness of their love. And neither the angels in heaven above, nor the demons down under the sea, can ever sever my soul from the soul of the beautiful Annabel Lee. So again we see how the narrator exaggerates. Even if that separates them, he will not give up on loving her. No matter what happens, they belong to each other. No one can have such a power to separate them. And for the moon never beams without bringing me dreams of the beautiful Annabel Lee. So as long as the moon beams every night, as long as he lives, he will continue to dream of Annabel Lee. And the stars never rise, but I feel the bright eyes of the beautiful Annabel Lee. So, despite the fact that he can never be with her physically anymore, every time he looks at the stars, he feels her bright eyes. And so, all the night tide, I lie down by the side of my darling, my life and my bride, in her sepulchre there by the sea, in her tomb by the sounding sea. It indicates that they are both children, however, he calls her as bride. So we understand that their love is not just an innocent childhood love. We understand the passion and strength of their love. They are tied to each other. And the final lines of the poem, the narrator lies down next to his woman's grave. So this image of the sea gets the reader into melancholy, the sadness, the atmosphere is sorrowful. And the poem that started as a fairy tale finishes in a dark atmosphere. The narrator is stuck in the loss of his love, sleeps her grave every night. And we are stuck with the grief and the sadness that the narrator has for the Annabel Lee. So, in conclusion, the main theme of this poem is immortal love and the death or the loss of beloved. So, losing the person you love the most can result in losing yourself too, because the narrator cannot embrace his woman's death. He, in fact, acts a bit insane. Although he doesn't directly and explicitly blames the god for that, he blames his creations such as the wind, the angels, the demons. I felt the sense of anger the narrator has. Maybe he's not angry with the god directly, but maybe he's angry with the fate, the things that happened to Annabel Lee. And we see the parallelism between this poem and Poe's life. The narrator says they are both children. So, when the Virginia and Poe married, Virginia was only 13 years old. And then we see the line, the wind that chilling and killing Annabel Lee might represent the disease that took the Virginia from Poe. So, love is beautiful, but it can hurt you in some cases. And the life experiences of Poe allows the themes of the love and death to be told from the first person perspective. And that's why we are affected by the heart. And this poem was written with the love and grief that Poe had for Virginia in his whole life.